Ja, mega gut. Welcome to Blackfluencers, euer Podcast, wo Black People in der Schweiz ins Zentrum stellt. Hello, welcome.
Oh, hello.
Hi, hi, Mercy.
Hi.
So,
I think it's a little bit dark, but yeah.
It's fine. I will just start with the introduction. So, for the audience, welcome back to a new episode of Blackfluencers. Today, we do everything a little bit different, everything a little bit new, trying some new stuff out. So, today is the first live interview I'm doing here on Instagram with a guest. She is actually not sitting in Switzerland yet. And therefore, I'm so grateful even that we managed to pull this off today to have you here on the channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome, Mercy, to Blackfluencers. As usual, I would love to just ask you really shortly to introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do in life? Because I know it's a lot. And what is your connection to Basel? Because today we will also talk about that. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elisa. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. This is really exciting. So I'm Ombagazi Mercy Nqandeka from South Africa in the Eastern Cape. So I do different things. I write books. I do business like on making beads, cultural beads from my culture, Xhosa culture. I'm doing my PhD in medicine and health sciences in Stellenbosch University. And yeah, I'm a farmer too. I have a background of farming. I studied farming. So my connection with Basel University is that I've been invited as a guest speaker for the conference that's happening with the Masters in African Studies. They have a conference 28th, 29th August. Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
29th, 30th of August. 28th is a rest day, but it will be by the end of August. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm coming to Switzerland for that, which I'm very excited for. Yeah, that's me.
And also, you're already spreading yourself thin. You're not just invited, you're actually opening the third conference of Masters in African Studies here in Basel on the 29th. I wrote it down. Everyone who wanted to hear Mercy's keynote, she will be at the Unibas on the 29th. It will start at 9 in the morning and end kind of 10:30-ish.
Yeah.
And I mean, you will talk about a really interesting topic. I just saw empowering voices, reclaiming African narratives, and shaping our futures. Probably you can say already a little bit, what can we expect without giving it all away? But why this topic?
Okay, thank you, Elise. I think on this topic, it's about basically like opening up Africa, like coming up as an African scholar, you know, to talk about research in Africa. Like, for example, we know that there is an influx of global north coming to the global south to get some knowledge. So I'm going to be delving deep into how that can be done morally, you know, like it's very important to not just come to extract, but to interact, you know. And also there's this how do I put it without being rude? I don't know, like this assumption that Africa is this clean slate, you know, that needs to be filled up, you know, with knowledge. But it's like, it is not just the north coming to the south to give us knowledge, to teach us, but it should be a knowledge exchange. I think my talk would be much more anchored on those things and recognizing the role that the African scholars have played, you know, African entrepreneurs have played, and what can be learned. So it's coming to say Africa is not a place of like poverty and all that we know about the global north, and insinuating that you need the North, and Africa is this sad child, you know, that needs to be rescued to be saved. So yeah.
And I mean, it makes me think of also certain debates we sometimes have around sustainability.
Yeah.
I think something that was really like mind-blowing to me is that I feel even in the sustainability bubble,
Yep.
a lot of European issues are being solved in the global south. When we think about agricultural crops being used to cultivate corn that then will be used for biofuels. So in Europe, we can have actually biofuel and feel less guilty about using a car. But now there are biocrops that sometimes are going away from native communities and moving towards these big corporations.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really interested to hear more on the 29th.
Yeah.
But before we probably give away too much, I know you yourself, you're an author. So for me, also that topic of African voices hit differently, because I know for a fact that you are also one of those African voices that we lately also see becoming more and more visible, maybe through the books that you wrote. I mean, I have to go a little bit through the notes, but you wrote 3 books so far. The Dissonant Rainbow, To My Young Self, and Don't Upset Malume.
Yeah.
Probably just for us to understand, how did you become an author? Was it always clear to you that you want to be a writer?
So I think being an author is one of the things I never planned. It was not in the cards, never ever. I mean, I didn't even think I could write a book. But my first book came around, I lived in Ireland for a year when I studied my master's in food security, climate change and agriculture at the National University of Ireland then, which is the University of Galway now. And I was just processing a lot. I think I was processing a lot of the South African history, you know, the apartheid, the segregation, oppression of my people. Like the first normal thing. I mean, I had never lived with white people in South Africa. There's this segregation or separation. It's not deliberate. It has been deliberate as a result of our history. We are separated. So I've never really spent time with white people. So I wasn't sure what moving to Ireland means to me as a black person, you know, like with a brown skin and being aware of being brown skinned, coming from a country that makes that very clear that you are black and you are white. So I love jazz. So on Sundays, I used to go to afternoon jazz in a pub and I would just sit. And I was always surprised when someone would come, a lady or a man coming, like they love talking to people. Irish people are very warm. And they will come, they will talk to me, where are you coming from? Like, what do you do? And they're interested in my story. And I'd go home and I'm like, I'm really stumbling at the fact that a white person is interested in my story. That a white person sees me as another human being and that they don't I don't have to explain myself, because in my country, not that it's on all the cases, but your presence in a white space, you always have to kind of defend it, like kind of explain. Even if someone's like, oh yeah, you speak really good English, where did you learn that from? Someone is trying to find out about your roots, like, how can I accept you? But how advantaged are you, or how privileged are you? And always having to explain your presence in white spaces. But in Ireland, I didn't have to do that. And that really was funny. And I went into research and I studied my South African history. It became something of my obsession during my stay abroad. And I watched documentaries and everything. And then I started by writing on my social media about reflections on my life abroad, you know, in Europe or in Ireland. And then people were like, why don't you write a book? You know, this could be a book. I mean, it's like a whole chapter. This is very long. You could put it into a book. And then I did. And when I returned to the country in 2018, 2018 December, I worked on publishing the book, which I launched in May 2020. 2021 or 2022, something like that. Can't remember. Why am I forgetting? Maybe 2021. Or yeah, or 2020. Okay, somewhere. Anyway, and then after that, I came back and I came to live in my village with my mother, and it was Corona, and I was a little bit bored, and I wrote a book called To My Young Self. Like I was like asking people, like, what would you like to say to your young self? It was lockdown. I circulated a Google document, and it was 320 people from 14 countries who responded, and I made those into a book, and I have people, everyone who contributed have their names, or people who prefer to be unknown, but their quotes are there. And then living in the village again, like, because I still live in the village, it's been 4 years now, more than 4 years actually, that I've moved into my villages, and I found myself being taken back to my childhood experiences, you know, like what we used to do as children, going to the forest, fetching water, and sending livestock to grazing, getting them back. And I started just writing about those daily experiences. Like at 7 o'clock in the morning, I would like be sitting there on my social media and writing about daily experiences and teaching about the Xhosa culture and everything. And people were like, again, why don't you write a book? I'm like, oh no, it's not a book. I mean, it's just pictures that I take, it's videos. And again, I compiled it into a book, and I was like, oh, I must be an author if I'm writing a third book. So yeah, I launched that book in July 2022. So that's the latest book now. And yeah, that's my history of writing. I continue to write. Like I use my social media as a space to share my culture. So I still do a lot of reels and with voiceovers explaining things. Like I'm very active on TikTok. I'm very active on Instagram, Facebook. So now that's the medium I'm using, like just videos and pictures. So maybe, I don't know if another book is going to come out of that. But yeah, that's my history of writing. Yeah.
It is really interesting to hear what you're saying, especially now hearing that somehow it was more audio-visual, probably even basis that you had as a research base, or pieces of work, or content that you created that you put. Why a book? Why not a movie?
I think as an academic, I'm very close to writing. I think things make more sense when I write. I was never exposed to doing film or like videos or everything. It's something I recently started. And maybe now I would go towards that, but I'd still need someone who's more skilled than I am. But back then, I wrote a lot. I write in general. I write a lot to process. I journal. Like I don't do it all the time, but when I journal, it will be pages and pages of just catching up with myself or catching up with my journal. So I process things through writing. Like it's like my family, like when someone, like if we clutch or something, I'm gonna write a very long SMS for you, you know, because I can't really speak if I'm angry or when I'm happy, you know. So I'll write. So I'm a writer. That's why I went for a book rather than a movie. Yeah.
I'm just seeing here a question by Mulombi. Thank you for the question. Yeah. Actually, I was reading through some of the articles about you, and I mean, I really have to say, I really celebrate. I think that the latest book, Don't Upset Malume, you wrote in isiXhosa, but also in English.
Yeah.
And somehow, as I understood, you're trying there to also bridge the gap for probably children of Xhosa descendants that don't speak Xhosa yet or didn't learn Xhosa properly, to also for them use the book as a learning tool, right?
Yeah. So I write, I do, like Mlombi, I do write in isiXhosa and English. So my latest book, Don't Upset Malume, which is available on Amazon, available on Take Note in South Africa, it's written in 2 languages. It felt like I was writing 2 books because when you're a Xhosa speaker, you know that there are things that you can just translate. So I do write in both languages. And also when I narrate my stories now, which is on my reels, sometimes I use isiXhosa just to encourage people to speak our language more. So I'm very much into that. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when we write in two languages,
Yeah.
it comes a lot with it. So most of the times, it's also a sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, who do I do that for, right? Who should have
Yeah.
access? But
Yeah.
also on the other side, I feel like there's always one language you're stronger than the other. Or as you
Yeah.
said, certain things you cannot translate just
Mhm.
word by word.
Yeah.
How do you deal with this bilinguality, this duality of languages?
Yeah.
What do you do when you have also like writer's block, especially when you are in these two different languages? Like,
Yeah.
are there, I don't know, methods or tools or even rituals
Yeah.
you found for yourself to help in that process?
Yeah. So I've been fortunate because I was a Xhosa guru from school during my schools. I passed my Xhosa language with straight A's, even for my matric. So I never really struggle because at home I speak Xhosa full time with my mother, and in the village I speak isiXhosa, and when I go to the city I switch. So for me it's a matter of it's a switch. There's a certain plug that I switch in my brain when I need to process things in isiXhosa or in English. But most of the time I should be honest that I do write my pieces in English because that's the easiest, quicker way of getting things out of the brain. And then I process them and I translate them on my own. And it's nicer when I'm translating my own work because I know what I was trying to say.
Yes.
You know. So yeah.
But then you just write in the language that comes faster,
Yeah.
and then you do the translation work.
It depends on the context, really. If I'm writing culturally and everything, it's nicer if I write in isiXhosa because then I am expressing it as it happens or as it takes place in my mind, you know. Like when I'm writing fictional stories around cultural women and all that, sometimes I will jump in isiXhosa and midway a paragraph in English comes and I'm gonna translate it later. I just juggle it. I mean, just then I think it's just the same way I think because sometimes I wouldn't say I think in which language, whatever language comes first, I guess. Yeah.
And probably the thinking which language comes can also be connected to memories or, you know, in which language we learned something first.
Yeah.
I believe. I'm not sure, right? I'm not a linguist. I'm not a brain doctor, whatever. I don't understand it fully, but that's how I imagine it.
Yeah.
But still talking about the bilinguality, I mean, obviously it was important to you for your books, especially the last one, to write it in two languages. So really you can read both sides, so to
Yeah.
say, in the book. That's how I imagine. How is that? How do you experience this debate within academia? Like,
I wrote it. Oh, sorry.
openness? Is there openness to indigenous languages, to native language, to have more entry points to even write and publish within academia? I mean, you now are specifically in Stellenbosch in South Africa, but compared to probably other contexts, I would imagine that there are debates around that.
Yeah. So in South Africa, we have not yet. There is scholars who write in their languages, but it's something that's still regarded as, well, you know, let them write in their vernacular, but it's nothing really taken that seriously. It's not like other countries where you're gonna write your thesis in French or Italian or Spanish, where it's upheld. In our case, it's not. We're still fighting for our languages to be respected. You know, as much as people say, "Oh yeah, constitutionally they're respected," but when people do want to write in their languages, it's normally kind of very difficult. You need to find someone who's open-minded, like a supervisor who's open-minded to support this, and also like who's gonna read this? Like if you write it in your language, so we still have to break through those barriers. But there are people who are doing that work. And also, as an indigenous scholar myself, it's this topic, like someone is like, yeah, like it would be very interesting if you're doing this and that, but like you're doing work on indigenous, it's a limited topic, and someone is going to tell you like it's a niche, you know. When someone wants to tell you that your work is, I don't know, that they're not interested in you. Yeah, it's such a niche. Like, I don't know who's gonna be interested in that. And then you know that, okay, it's out of class. Like, it's like, oh, you're in medicine and health sciences. Okay, what do you do? Indigenous knowledge systems. Oh, then the topic changes, you know, opportunities change all of a sudden. Like someone is like wanting you to explain more. But so it's something you do because you feel deeply about it in your heart, and that you hope one day it's gonna open up like many doors for the upcoming generations. But at the moment, as a person, you kind of pay heavily because people, oh, that's interesting, but they're like, okay, it's not scientific, you know. But it's like indigenous knowledge, valuable knowledge. But someone's like, oh yeah, it's not proven. That's the word that they normally use. It's not proven, and you're
By
like,
who?
oh gosh.
By who, right?
Yeah.
Not proven by who.
You see, exactly.
No, I think that's
Exactly. Yeah.
interesting. Also, in our pre-talk, we touched on several topics also concerning academia, but probably for our audience, I mean, you have this really artistic side in you. You are an author. You also have your own company. Oh, I have to. Where did I write it in? Omba Craft.
Craft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you're doing your PhD, and your field is more into so-called life science. I saw you have a double master. You did master in soil science, then you did climate change and food security, agriculture. After that, you did now you were a guest lecturer at Utrecht, and now you're doing your PhD in Stellenbosch, where you are researching about the resilience of indigenous healers, right? And they're important for public health care.
Yes.
Probably you can tell us a little bit more about, first of all, how did you manage to do so many degrees in such a short time? And how you also, like, was it always a dream to go into life sciences, more natural sciences, to even have like even this balance personally? Or do you feel is that also a systematical pressure to go into life science?
Yeah, okay. I'll start by explaining I'm an artist, not by default. Again, I didn't plan to be an artist. I never wanted to be an artist. I don't see myself as an artist anyway. But I started by making beads, you know. When I came back to the country, I didn't have money. I didn't have a job, and I needed to do something, you know. I was like, I'm really good with my hands. Maybe I can learn something. And I do hear that my grandmother, actually, my mother's mom, was a bead maker, but when I grew up already, she was sick and was not doing so. When my mom sees me doing beads, she's like, you remind me of my mom, you know. So it's something that runs in the DNA. And I've been doing well with that. Like I have a page on Instagram if people are interested. It's called Rumba Crafts. But I do things like this. Like I create motifs around my culture. This is how our heart looks like in the Xhosa culture. So it's like a communication that I make with bees, like a co-creating with clients. Whatever someone wants to make, like if you have a mom who's retiring or you have a mom who loves birds, so I create like a motif that symbolizes that, and many other things like beaded stethoscopes and things like that. So it has grown over time, and I've been able to train a few women that help me do this. But it's something that was stress relieving for me. It's something that I just jumped into it. So about my academic life, I come from a background of agriculture. Like I'm an agronomist. I studied at Fort here in South Africa. And then I got a scholarship to study in France, like a French embassy scholarship. And I went to do my first year of master's in Ireland and second year of master's in France. And then I did my internship in Uganda. And then I always knew that I was very interested in academia, but didn't want to be a typical academic who's in the office from 7 to 7. You know, I wanted to be an academic with a life. Like I had a professor Isaiah Wakindiki from Kenya. Nairobi, and he was a professor, but he had a cool life. You know, he was like, "Do you want to go for a drive? Let's go to Hogsback, eat something in South Africa. We get a drink and then we drive back." And I was like, "I want that. You know, I want to be that professor who's super cool." And then I mean, in life sciences, when I was a child, I wanted to be a medical doctor, but that quickly changed when I started my high school, and one of my dorm mates had an ear infection and she was admitted in hospital, and I went to hospital with my dorm mates. I was like, cancel, done. I'm not doing this. Like, I was just so scared, like, of everything, like people in pain. I was like, no, I can't stand this. I need to do something else. And then anyway, yeah. So, but it was always my dream to be in the space of medicine, because I think it's so close to human life. You know, it's life sciences. And it really interests me, like things that I watch on my Netflix. It's normally a series about like Grey's Anatomy, New Amsterdam, The Good Doctor. I'm always very intrigued by medicine, you know. So when I got this chance to be doing, it's more of a humanitarian medicine, like more research on humanitarian medicine, I was like, count me in. I'm taking an offer. I really like being in the space of medicine, but not medicine. I don't know if you understand me, but anyway.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But probably for the audience, we have to explain it a little bit. I mean, obviously, what I learned, and I'm just basics. Huh?
Yeah.
But obviously, we talk more about life science also nowadays, and especially when we are talking about public health, because there are interconnections between all the beings in the world, right?
Yeah.
A lot of like, for example, when we talk about tropical illnesses, some of them are being transmitted by animals, some of them, you know, by mammals or whatever. And so obviously there are this interconnection where the lines are not that clear anymore. And then within academia, we all know about that. Is like, especially in health, we see now more interdisciplinary or even transdisciplinary projects. And I think your PhD research really goes into that field and corner of, okay, where are the intersections, rather than drawing the lines. Probably you can talk about like how you came up with that idea of researching on that topic, and what does that mean.
Okay, so I think for me, so resilience is a psychological term which is also used in social sciences, and then it's used in science. So there's such intersections around social science and psychology, and then of course it's medical. It's a medical term. And so it came about because when I returned to my villages, I observed that when people are sick, like the health-seeking behavior of a patient, they will start going to the traditional healer, indigenous healer, which I call indigenous healer. I don't like using the word traditional because it means something outdated, something, I don't know, backward. So I use indigenous, you know. And they go to indigenous healers, and then after that, if maybe they're still sick, they'll go to a health facility, clinic or hospital. But I was quite interested. I was like, why are people going there? But you realize that they kind of hide it when they're going. And I was like, why are they hiding it? Because it's a health system of its own, you know. It is a very strong health system. And then I was like, why is it that indigenous healers are functioning in secret, you know, in a way? And when you read, you find out that in South Africa, in 1957, there was an act that was passed that prohibited indigenous healers from practicing. That it was regarded, it was called Witchcraft Suppression Act. It was witchcraft, it was superstition, it was killing people, they said. So people were arrested for practicing. Like when you talk to elders, they're like, you wouldn't function during the day. You had to do everything you do overnight. Your patients would come overnight and you help them. But in literature, when you read in South Africa, it says that 8 out of 10 Black people in South Africa will see a healer for anything, like for spirituality, for their sicknesses, for balancing, for settling themselves, anything you think of. They go to an indigenous healer. And I was asking myself, how have they been such a resilient kind of people despite the act? And I was like, okay, I'm going to study that. I'm going to study the resilience of indigenous healers. You know, what has kept them? despite the opposition, despite the oppression, the apartheid against their practice. Like apartheid was funny that it didn't seek to just oppress people economically. They were seeking to control and oppressing people even from their spiritual point of view, like forcing people to be going to church and talking bad mouthing indigenous healing, saying that it's magic, it's juju, whatever you call it. And it's like, it's not enough that you take my land. It's not enough that you take my cows. It's not enough that you push me to live in the Bantustans that people lived in South Africa. But you also want to take my belief. You also want to take my religion, what I believe in. Like, what's your problem? Why? But you realize that people were resilient and they fought in their ways, because then they shifted the practice from whatever time to the night, that people come at night. But again, in that secrecy, there's so much that goes wrong. Like if someone has to hide, then they don't have time to grow. Because I always say, biomedical or health system, it was once primitive, but it was allowed to grow. They have wronged, they've killed people before, and it is known it was a very, very backward kind of feeling, but they developed it. But they want to oppress every other health system that is not theirs. Again, it's the job of the colonization, it's the job of the missionaries, it's the job of white supremacy to oppress and suppress everything. But I was like, still, there's something in it. There's something that people understood, that you cannot take my belief, you cannot take my healing. So we're going to be resilient, we're going to still do this. And many, many years later, people still prefer to go to their indigenous healers. So that's what I'm looking into, like what has kept them going.
Do you think, especially, I mean, that's just an open question.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that there are several reasons why people would continuously put even themselves and the others at risk to still go to their indigenous healer, especially in a country that has the apartheid story, right? Like I can imagine that there is a suspicion also towards a really westernized healthcare system, and I could imagine that a lot of Black South Africans continuously and hiddenly went to the indigenous healer out of also scarcity of what will happen in a white hospital. And then if we look at the westernized medical system, we know for a fact that there were crazy things happening. Like if we look at the so-called godfather of gynecology, I mean, this crazy dude was operating on Black women without anesthesia, doing crazy operations, and I could imagine that also that type of almost generational trauma will make people survive and rather go to an indigenous healer. Are there or feedbacks or even interviews or something that would, I don't know.
Yeah, people were suspicious and they didn't trust it. I mean, if you're fighting someone, if you're busy fighting the people and they're taking your land, they're killing your people, and then they tell you, oh, no, come to our hospital, we'll cure you. Like, what are the odds that I'm going to trust you after you kill everybody, after you oppress me, that I will come to a hospital? And also there's this intimidation, this institutional intimidation of people, of indigenous people especially. It's still there. Like, people will not go to the hospital out of their will. It's a place that is associated sometimes, as much as it heals, that it helps people most of the time, but sometimes someone will be like, my mother entered the hospital and she never left again,
It's
or this and that
correlated with death.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So there was that, and it's still there, the trust. And also I think what makes people kind of not trust is that why should I choose? Why is it not optional for me to go to my healer? Why should I choose between my healing ways and Western healing ways? Then it makes it very suspicious that you have to abandon, your healing system in favor of taking and embracing this foreign healing system, which is quite interested now to see that being rolled out by fellow indigenous people, kind of like punishing others or scrutinizing others for going to indigenous healers. And you're like, sweetie, you are black like me, and you are telling me to embrace the system. Of course, it has trained you, but what makes you as an African think that you can, I don't know, you can bully others into accepting a foreign healing system? The foreign healing system works, yes, because it has had time to be developed. It has not been oppressed. But why should people have an option? Because, for example, when I visited Vietnam in May, I could see how indigenous health and Western health were going hand in hand. You choose where you want to go. And it's okay. It's totally okay. So I came back like trying to figure out why should we choose between the other,
And also two interesting things I just am thinking right now, right? When we talk about these different systems, sometimes we behave like they were always separated, while historically speaking, different knowledge systems always inspired each other. There was always this interconnection, even back in the days.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
For people to think that the westernized health system has no basis in indigenous healing systems is nuts, because there might be a lot of practices that were observed back in the days by medical anthropologists or whatever, right? And that then were proven as effective practices and were immediately integrated in the so-called Western medical education.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably also because we're talking about the resilience and also the importance, right, of, you said, I think if I recall it the right, of indigenous midwives for healthcare.
Yeah.
Did you see, or do you observe or have knowledge of projects in South Africa where they always use these interconnections instead of this really strong separations?
It is separation. Indigenous midwives actually in South Africa are not called indigenous midwives. They are called traditional birth attendants. Just someone who's I don't understand. I don't even understand what that term means. Traditional birth attendant. What are you attending? Anyway, they are midwives. So like it's not even something that's recognized in the South African policy at the moment. It doesn't exist. Yes, the word they're being called that exists, but there is no policy that incorporates them into the system, that recognizes them, that respects the work that they do. I was listening to a conversation between a health worker, like someone who works in the Department of Health, and she just didn't want to mention the importance of incorporating indigenous healers, despite the fact that women in the villages are very far from hospitals, that they have to walk. I mean, I did a video, it's on my TikTok, I did a video about an 8 months pregnant woman who had to walk for 14 kilometers and back and forth to a clinic. She has to cross a river on a very tiny boat that is like falling apart. And she gave birth and she had to cross that boat with a baby, like 1 day old baby. And she had to walk for another like maybe 2 kilometers. And she had given birth naturally, and it was a complicated birth, but she still had to walk, And then you have government officials who just do not want to mention that you need indigenous midwives. So it's a very disappointing thing, because it's people again who are black like me, who are leaning on Western ways of healing. And there has been incidents in the village of someone getting into emergency labor, that it's too far to get to the hospital, and they just give birth by the roadside. And guess who will be called? An indigenous midwife, someone who knows how to birth a baby. And no, again, that's something that's covered. They move on. It's like, okay, thank you for birthing them, but you should send them to the hospital. You should never, you shouldn't help people. Like it's just a complicated thing. It's a complicated thing. It's something that maybe I want to study after this, after I finish my PhD, because it's quite an interesting topic. That in this time and era, it's 2024, but in policy in South Africa, we don't have anything that talks about the incorporation or the recognition of indigenous midwives. How come?
And I think that would lead me to the next question. I hear a lot, or the debate we sometimes have, even at Unibas, is that belief that as academics or within academia, activism or political work or doesn't go hand in hand with academia. I strongly refuse that thought. I think a lot of us academics are also being activists or choosing even research to push certain debates forward. Now, in your case, if you can imagine yourself in 10 years, you did the PhD research already, what would you like to see happening in South Africa based on the work you contribute?
Yeah. So I think I did my research as a result of the activist in me, the advocacy. I think research mostly should be based on advocacy. What do you want to push? What narrative are you pushing towards? And then what are you going to, in your research, what are you going to find out? Because I'm in my research and I'm finding out now about other things that I'm not studying, like the indigenous midwifery. And so I think in the next 10 years, I want to be that indigenous scholar, someone you can come to when you want to know about the Xhosa culture, and also someone you can come to who's going to be pushing policies that are forcing the government to include indigenous healers, indigenous people, indigenous knowledge systems. I think on a broader context, it's the indigenous knowledge systems that should be recognized. So I think what I'm going to push, it's going to be narratives that are including indigenous people, the ways of being, the livelihoods of indigenous people. So I think hopefully I find myself in policy making around indigenous knowledge systems, be it healing, be it in the space of food production and protecting the land and things like this. So I think that's going to be my space. I'm yet to maybe ground, like I don't want to ground myself into a niche. I struggle with the niche because as humans, we are dynamic, you become what is needed at the time. You could be advocating
categories.
Sorry?
Abolish the categories, right?
Yeah. So I will become whatever is needed by my community whenever. So I'm very willing to adjust and adapt as time goes.
So to all the South Africans right now that are listening or that will listen after the live, you know who to follow. If you want a good politician, an advocate, please just follow Mercy's account. You can get in touch with her. And I'm sure we will see and hear more about you. And that leads me also to something, I mean, I'm not surprised that you're part of change makers, right? So probably you can explain to us a little bit, how did you end up being a change maker, and what does that mean?
Yeah, it's nothing planned again. I think as much as I sometimes do call myself an activist, but it's not something I really like calling myself. But I'm too vocal. That's where it starts. I'm too vocal. I take it from my mother. I take it from my grandmother. I just don't know how to keep quiet when things are not going well. I'm the person who's going to stand up, and if things need to be physically moved, like if you need to move chairs, I'm that person who's going to move chairs, who's going to sweep the floor. I just need to get things done. So I'm always the person who speaks up. In school, as a child, I was always like that. I spoke up, and I didn't care who said what. I spoke up against the teacher. I spoke up against a shopkeeper. If I went to buy something and it had an expiry date, I would walk back and I'm like, "Hi, I think this has an expiry date and it expired already. Can I get a new one?" So I was always that annoying child in a way. Now I understand now how I got here, because I'm always that person who just doesn't know how to keep quiet. So that's why I'm here. You know?
I think it's a good quality. I can really relate to that. Believe me. Power
Yeah.
to the loud
Yeah.
black
Yeah.
females.
Of course.
Continue being loud.
Yeah.
No reason
Of
to
course.
be silent over here.
Exactly.
No, but it's really good that we're talking about that. Well, in our pre-talk, because we were talking now also about certain forms of discrimination of indigenous people, exclusion, but in our pre-talk we also discussed forms of exclusion you are experiencing
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
not only as a PhD fellow, for example, where you don't have access to certain scholarships, to certain funds, but also right now you're dealing with the visa issue.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there's many. I think I always say, like, to my white friends that walking around with a brown skin comes with some sort of curses of their own. Like, people will look at you and they decide who you and what you are just from your brown skin. You know, it's I travel the world a lot and have different experiences from different countries, where sometimes people are just looking at you and you're trying maybe to ask something, someone doesn't help you. Like, it happened to me in Austria and Vienna. And I thought it was a progressive country, but it was very conservative around 2016. And you'd watch people going to sit elsewhere, like leaving you with the whole carriage of a train because they can't sit next to a black person in a way. And now I'm currently experiencing something that really, it breaks my heart. But I got my visa denied for the very first time in my life. I've never had a visa denied. It's your country, Switzerland. They are very, very stingy around it. Last year, August, I was in Lugano and I was going to be in Switzerland for 8 days. And they gave me exactly 8 days. If anything would happen for any reason, then I would have kicked out of Switzerland. You know, like, there was no allowance for even 1 day in between. And then now I'm applying for a visa, Swiss visa, because I'm coming to Switzerland. I did that application when I landed back in South Africa. I was coming from Hungary, and I had asked for a longer Schengen visa because I was in Hungary from the 1st to the 7th to the 8th of July. But they gave me a visa up to the 25th of July that I need to, like, it would have made it so easy, right? If I had gotten a longer visa. And then I went, when I arrived on the 17th of July, I went to Pretoria to do my visa, Swiss visa. It was so difficult. Like, the staff was just unkind and all that. And again, it's people black like me. And but I felt like all kinds of negative feelings. And then I got a response last Friday that, sorry, your visa has been denied because you spend 2 more days in France than you are spending in Switzerland. So, and I'm like, guys, the last thing you want to do is to deny me a visa when I have few weeks before I travel. But here I am now. I still don't have a visa. I still have to book for a date. On and on and on. It's the exclusion. Being an African, traveling around with a brown skin, that all of a sudden someone thinks you want to go live in their country. But hello, sweetie, I'm studying in South Africa. I have a business. I have a life. I'm not trying to go live in a cold country, sorry. But here I am. And it's injustice that makes you so angry, but it renders you completely disarmed because there's nothing you can do. You know, there is not much that you can do. In my activism, in my change making, in my speaking up, you have to tread carefully around this because it's easy to be banned. It's bullyism, you know, it's someone who bullies you and they know that you're not going to say anything because you need them. So it's the space that I feel that it's just a very disempowering state.
No, and I think for me, when we talked about that earlier, for me, it's that as a black woman, being born in Switzerland, seeing that even after 30 years, after 50 years, after 60 years, our country doesn't manage to shift, you know?
Yeah.
And I can tell you, no, you don't need them. We would need you actually to come and speak and share your knowledge with us.
Yeah.
So yes, I hope really that they will correct the mistake.
Yeah.
If anyone is listening here that is working working at the Swiss Embassy or having ties with the Swiss Embassy, please do us a favor. Make a call.
Yeah, we would appreciate a call. We just need a call, that call.
Or hey, dear Swiss people, you can also just call the migration department and just rant about our migration policies. It's always also a possibility. But I thought it was really important that we talk the truth here on this channel, because this is Blackfluencers and we talk about the good, the ugly, and the beautiful.
Yeah.
But so thank you for sharing that. And thank you also to stay strong, because I understand we don't always want to stay strong.
No. You just want to crumble and fall into your corner and stay there. But there's no staying there when you want to. I mean, I love traveling. I mean, I love doing the talks that I do in different places and the workshops that I go to. I love the life I've chosen, and I want to be able to get an opportunity to do that, you know. So whenever there's something that comes on my way, it's very discouraging, you know, because I'm already fighting as it stands. I think as a Black person, and then as a Black woman, there's fights that you're always going to fight anyway.
That's also a topic for itself, the resilience of Black females in the world. Probably for yourself, because I know situations like that can be frustrating. It can have an impact on us mentally. How do you deal for yourself? Do you have coping strategies? How you deal with the bullying? How you, like, what does help you in that situation?
I think my coping mechanism is first standing up for myself. Whatever I need to do to, like, whatever you send me, I send you back like doubled, you know. I stand up for myself. I shout it if I need to. I write emails if I need to. Like, I do not stand bullyism, like, anyway, even if it's at the airport, anyway, I do not. And then after that, you realize that you lose so much energy, and then you just crumble and you fall into the state of agony and kind of depression. But I always need to pick myself up because there's so much to be done, you know. And sometimes I feel like I don't moan, I don't deal enough with the things that put me down, because we're always like trying to move on, but you like, these things do come back to haunt you one way or the other. So I'm still learning, like finding tools. Like, being a resilient person means that you always need to be on your kind of fight and protect mode. So it's a matter, because now I'm just learning to just be quiet and getting into my hole and just stay there until I heal. You know how dogs do it. When a dog has a wound, it will just stay and lick itself until it's healed. So I'm learning to lick my wounds, you know, because sometimes I go to the next fight bleeding from the previous one, and it's a build up of wounds that are not dealt with. So I'm learning to now just sit for a moment and lick the wound before I move to the next, you know. So, because as an activist or as an advocate, there's always a next battle, you know. But yeah, it's prioritizing one's mental health, one's mental state. You know, I always have to reflect and check, how am I doing? Am I okay? Am I not okay? What do I need to do? I don't respond. I don't write. I don't do anything. I just sit still. And it's that stillness that you heal. But it's not easy, because there's so much going wrong that you want to address. So it's a difficult thing that I struggle dealing with that. Yeah, I would say.
Are there also other people around you that you can exchange about those things? Like, for me, sometimes to go into safer spaces where I can exchange with my sisters, you know, and really talk about it and vent about it, and, you know, go on a rant. For me, sometimes it helps. I don't know. I heard also that the beat making, I could imagine, is almost like a meditational.
It's a therapy. It's a therapy of its own. And I do have friends that I pick up my phone and I call and I explain everything and they understand. Or we sit, like when I visit them, we sit and we talk about I'm fortunate to have friends who are able to listen to me, because sometimes I'm like, what should I do? You know, I don't know what to do. And my friend will be like, oh, okay, this is the plan. This is what you're going to do. You need to look after yourself. You need to take care of yourself. This, that. You're taking too much responsibility. You should ease off here and there, because they know already what I'm trying to pull. So I'm fortunate to have such friends who are able to sit down with me when I'm just falling apart. So that's been a very important part also. It's very important. Yeah.
Well, as I said, fingers crossed that you are still gonna come to Basel. And other than that, I hope, even if they would have to do it in a hybrid form, I'm sure you're gonna rock the stage. Please.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So
I really want to come in person.
Who wants to see Mercy talk 29th of August at the University Basel from 9 to 10:30. Exactly. And the topic will be empowering voices, reclaiming African narratives, and shaping our futures.
Yeah.
Now, Mercy, we are already almost hitting the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
Time runs so fast. I
so quick.
Really enjoy our conversation. I'm sure we could go on for another hour.
Yeah.
But also to just like protect our resources, yours and I. Probably I would love to do one last question. If you can look into the future, maybe for yourself, for your country, for your research, for your business, what do you like to imagine? What do you wish for? What do you ask for from the world? Yeah, probably just to share some of your final thoughts.
Yeah, so I think what I'm asking from the universe is creating a space that I will be co-creating with others, of course, that I come across along the way, but a space whereby you, Elisa, coming from Switzerland or Angola, that you're able to come and experience my culture in terms of food, in terms of crafts, in terms of knowledges, in terms of storytelling. Like if I can be able to have that space that I'm able to host people from everywhere in the world to share different aspects of my life, the farming side, I just dream of a home where we are farming, we have animals, we have crops, and we have crafts, you know, kind of like a mini museum, and we have books, you know, we have the beads, we have just a space that speaks to who and what I am, the many things that I'm doing, that I put them under one roof and be like, this is me sharing myself with the world. I think I'd be very happy if I would establish that.
That's such a nice vision, and it actually makes me remember a lot Nqandeka. Don't know if you know him.
No.
So Nqandeka is a Nigerian artist. He's, I would say, a little bit older, probably in his 60s now. He became quite an international artist household name for himself, and he now built the Shonibare Foundation.
Wow.
Where in Nigeria they actually he was able to buy land and build a farm, and so he set up a space now that is an artistic residency.
Wow.
So as artists, you can apply for that residence. You can stay there. You can food from that place where you're actually staying. So everything you're saying really speaks into what I know about him.
No, I'll check him out.
Yeah. Probably that's a guy you should check out.
Yes.
I'm sure
I will.
He would love that idea.
Yeah, no, certainly. I'll check him out.
Cool. No, but then from my side, I can only thank you so much. Yeah. It was so nice that you trusted me to come on this live to talk about your life story, and really also trying something out that in this form I never did before, but I really enjoyed it. And I hope also all people in the audience that are jumping in and out, that you enjoyed our talk, but you also were able to learn something.
Yeah.
Just as a quick reminder again, we can see and hear Mercy on the 29th of August at the University of Basel. She will be the keynoter for the third conference of Masters of African Studies. And she will do the opening session.